It is a bit late, I will admit, but this is my December reading wrap-up, 2 books of which were featured in my favourites of 2024, so I will gloss over those ones a little bit because I've already talked about them. But I read 6 books in December, multiple genres, multiple formats, and here's what they are, I guess. The first book I read in December last year was Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake. This was a Christmas rom-com that was exactly what it says it was. It was so cute and gave me all of the feels. It was second chance romance, which is a trope that I love. It had all of the things that you want in a rom-com, especially a Christmas rom-com. There was holiday antics, there was a snow-in. It was just so great. I find Ashley's writing very addictive. I adore her rom-coms. Delilah Green is one of my all-time favourite books, and this book is probably my second favourite book from Ashley, and I am really, really excited for the next book that they have coming out in 2025, which I cannot remember its name, but I will put a picture of it here. Basically, we follow Brennan and Charlotte, who are ex-girlfriends. They were childhood lovers, they grew up, they got engaged, they were going to be married, and on the day of the wedding something happens and, you know, tensions are high, and the events in the novel are set 5 years after that, and neither of them have seen each other since then, spoken to each other. And then they both somehow rock up at the same random house. Both Charlotte and Brennan are feeling lonely over the Christmas season, and so their mutual best friends decide to invite them to their house for Christmas. These 2 best friends happen to be sisters of the same house, and so from there hijinks ensue. And then I had a reread, which was A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. I read this years ago and I couldn't really remember what happened in it other than really liking it. I am pleased to say that I still really like it. The audiobook for this was really lovely. The narrator was really great. In A Natural History of Dragons, we follow the infamous Lady Trent, as she is currently known, as this is a memoir. A fictionalized memoir, and her early days as being a dragonologist, I guess. I think she would say dragonologist. Dragon naturalist. Dragonologist sounds cool. We follow her in the early days of her career and everything that she finds in her first journey abroad, and all of the dinosaurs that we encounter and interact with, and her fight to be heard over this group of men around her. This is what I would call cozy academia. It's just really lovely and really soft and slow paced. So if that's not the kind of thing that you're looking for, then maybe avoid. But while it is a bit slower paced, it does have pacier moments. There is action that happens, and when those action moments happen, they really they get you. I then read The Gilded Crown by Marrianne, which I spoke about in my 2024 favourites, so I won't say too much here, other than that this is a dark political sapphic fantasy that I really, really enjoyed. We have a lot of really great stuff in this. We have death as a persona, as a person, if you will. We have corrupt power and generational trauma and all of these moving parts that happen in a political world that kind of revolve around each other and kind of touch but don't quite touch, but they're always affecting each other. And our main character, Helivia, is kind of an unwilling but also willing part in this cog of the world. She is fierce and brave and a little bit naive and stubborn, and by the end of the novel I feel like she's really come into her own. She's really figured out a lot more about herself as a person, and what she is or is not willing to sacrifice and who she's willing to sacrifice that for. I really, really, really loved this, and I am really excited for the sequel, The Antlered King, to come out in, I think it's March this year. So yeah, this is definitely one to add to your TBR if you're looking for your next, you know, political fantasy. And then I finally read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This has been on my TBR for years at this point, and I loved it, as I knew I would. This is great. It is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. I have not read that, so I cannot speak to how it serves the original text, I suppose, but I really, really loved this. I read the audiobook for it, and the audiobook narration was fantastic. I love how quietly devastating this was. There was no hope for anything the whole way through. From the first page, there is no hope, but also there still is, in a way. I loved it. I love the conventions that T. Kingfisher plays with. I love the fictional nation that our main character Alex is from, that has lots of really interesting pronouns that they use for different people. There is a specific pronoun for soldiers, for example. So fascinating and so well thought out. There is so much, it achieves so much in such a short book, and I am really excited to read the sequel. I loved the themes that we explored. The main character is a retired soldier, so they deal with a lot of things like tinnitus, like the ringing in your ears. That would obviously be a aftershock from grenades and bombs and gunfire and things like that. And also just the general post-war trauma, I suppose. I love how all of the characters in this interact with each other. It is just so fun in such a tragic way. I really wish I had the US cover because, like, it's pretty, but it doesn't make as much sense. Like, it makes sense, but it doesn't make as much sense as the US cover makes sense. And if you know, you know. And then I read Merry and Bright by Jenn Collignon, I think is how you pronounce the last name. I'm so sorry if it is not. This was a tiny little Christmas rom-com novella. It is sapphic and it is so sweet. What the author manages to achieve, and I think it's like 50 pages, is incredible. It feels like a whole and realized, you know, rom-com in the space of what took me an hour on audiobook to get to work one day. I adored this, and I'm really excited to read more of Jenn's writing after this now. It is so sweet, and I highly recommend it. I will definitely be rereading it next Christmas. I think it is sweet, it's a little bit spicy, it is so heartfelt and just so full of love and joy, which is, I think, exactly what you want in a little Christmas novella. So yeah, I'm so excited to read more of Jenn's words now. The last book I read in 2024 was Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones, which is also in my 2024 favorites. I adore this book. I love it in such a different way than I love the movie, but equally, if that makes sense. It is just so lovely. So lovely. I adore Diana's writing style. It is very punctual and very to the point, but still, you know, holds space for some lovely writing and some lovely moments between the characters. And just, it's very cynical and sharp and kind of punchy, but it's still soft and cozy and warm. And I just love it. I love it. We follow Sophie, who is a hatter, and in the book she is the oldest child of a, you know, relatively relatively well-off family that has 3 daughters, and her father passes away, and her stepmother kind of decides what's to do with all the daughters, and Sophie is going to be a hatter apprentice, basically. But there's a lot of other political things going on outside of Sophie's sphere, and she becomes a unfortunate victim of the Witch of the Waste, and she is magicked into being a 90-year-old woman, and so she decides she's going to trudge off into the wilds and find a cure for this. And she happens upon Howl's moving castle, and there she makes a bargain with Calcifer, the fire spirit, the fire demon, and they decide to help each other out. I love this. It's so